Hey Dave, thanks for meeting with me here. Just wanted to follow up. I know we had a couple chats, a few weeks ago, and I thought it made sense for us, of course, to sit down as your renewal is kind of around the corner to really talk about how we can be best partner moving forward. And so the purpose of this here is, I think, first and foremost, is to ensure that we have really a vision match in terms of me understanding really what are the key challenges and of course areas of opportunity, us being able to really drive into that and agree upon it. And then secondly, me being able to share with you how we've been able to best partner with companies in that similar situation, and really just look at your specific situation as well. And then lastly, in terms of next steps, I'll be able to, of course, put together a proposed solution. We can walk through that, kind of share what that implementation and roadmap will look like, and then agree upon executing upon it. So, wanted to just spend the next few minutes chatting through that. First and foremost, of course, really driving into the key challenges and opportunities, and I think in terms of the opportunities that you guys have grown into today, I mean, the past 12 months have been the most amount of growth your business has seen. So now to put a little snapshot here, you guys went from about 30 or so consultants to now 50. Instead of being in just two offices, now you're in four, and the two new ones, of course, being in Melbourne and in Brisbane. And of course, all three verticals being the tech side, the recruit side, and the finance side are growing and doing well and very healthy. So those are the great things that you guys have been able to grow into, and the opportunity, of course, is more revenue, and more of a national presence in Australia. But with that, there's been some challenges, and what I've heard are really three core challenges that you guys are seeing today. First, of course, is the amount of confusion amongst the brands. Because you guys are really growing these three lines of business out, there is confusion for members in terms of what 2XM specializes in and what do they do. Most don't even know that there's two other lines if they're dealing with just finance. They don't realize that there's tech and recruit as well. And because of that, because there isn't that distinction in each individual vertical, you're sharing with me that there's oftentimes a loss of credibility from clients. There's a loss of opportunity in which companies don't realize that you can be helping them out in other areas, um, and feel like it's really within that. So that's the first challenge. The second one that I'm hearing is that because you guys have opened new offices in Brisbane and Melbourne, there's little exposure of the 2XM brand in those areas. So because of that, the business development side has been lacking in those offices. And so, in short, there needs to be really a stronger brand awareness marketing push to really fuel the growth of those two new offices. And then, lastly, of course, as you guys are growing, there's really a need to get your consultants in the door and billing as quickly as possible. So there's a hiring need, but there's also the challenge of attrition as well. So as a whole, right, for all entire staffing customer base in Australia, there's about a 20% attrition in terms of talent leaving the door. And oftentimes, not only they may be starting their own business, or they may be joining one of your competitors, but there's a couple things. One, of course, that leaves a hole in which you need to quickly fill in terms of talent. Not only quickly fill, quickly ramp, but lastly, that person that leaves is taking a lot of the IP away from you. So there's a leakage in the bucket in terms of IP, and not only is that leaking out, but that's going and fueling potentially a competitor of yours. So all these three areas really do kind of attribute, to the new growth of the company and the business. And these are ways that we feel, or I feel as well, that LinkedIn can kind of help out with. So those are the problems that I've heard. and I could see with your nods that you're in agreement with what I'm sharing here. So let's transition over and talk about how we've been able to help. And so, before really going in too deep, because I really want to be able to walk through what this solution would look like. Um, if we're talking about really the overall kind of narrative, I would really break it down to three simple areas. So how we're building your audience and awareness, how we're engaging with them on a consistent basis, and lastly, how that's turning into the recruit side, helping you recruit for your candidates, clients, or consultants all around the business. So the big focus is the B, which is the build. And so that's where, what we need to be doing here is, creating awareness about the individual lines of business that you guys are able to and we have to be able to target each respective audience, which LinkedIn is, of course, one of the only platforms in which you can do. We know individual members for each vertical. We can identify them and we can engage with them on a consistent basis to ensure that they're aware of 2XM's different lines, even feed them relevant information based on their background. And that will reduce confusion, of course, create more, educate them more in terms of what you guys are about. In terms of the new offices, right? Again, we can target those audiences. We know who they are, and ensure that we're bringing awareness to those audiences. So to of course fuel in the top of the funnel in terms of clients and leads, but also from the candidate perspective as well. And so we'll walk through that, what that looks like. And then lastly, in terms of the turnover, that's oftentimes in terms of, again, building the right content pipeline through building awareness in those new markets, and obviously within the consultancy base for recruiters, but also using measures such as Recruiter to ensure that IP is locked into the business, because that is really the most precious thing. For 2XM is the data that you guys have, and that's how you have your competitive edge. So, what I'll talk about are ways, especially on like LinkedIn's platform, to ensure that you're locking in that IP. And so those are a few different ways that we can tackle those specific issues. Again, on the building of a brand awareness and distinction between the brands. Of course, in regards to the building out those new markets. And then lastly, in terms of the consultant turnover and quickly, onboarding there. So, in terms of next steps, of course, would love to hear your voice of approval in terms of the alignment here. But I'd love to put something together here, and we can kind of walk through what that strategy is for 2XM. How does that sound? Cheers.